This is day 4 of Learning Redefined, our first ever online conference, and the focus is all about celebrating teaching and learning. I'm Graham Trick, and I'm the learning specialist here at Showbie. For those of you who've not met Showbie before, we're a hybrid learning platform that are empowering over 3 million users globally. And our aim is to provide richer, deeper, more personalized feedback for students. It's something that we're proud of, and we've been doing it for over 10 years. If you want to find out more about us, please visit showbie.com. During the presentation, please either use the chat or the Q&A feature to ask questions. And what we'll do is we'll save them up and ask them to Emma at the end. And for now, I'd like to welcome Emma and thank you in advance for doing this presentation where we're going to explore the use of technology around flipped learning. So thank you, Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Graham. True welcome and very good morning from our end and all around the world. This is impressive. Flip learning. I think this is something that's just so exciting, and the aim of this session is just to make sure that you are able to understand what happens in the classrooms, think about maybe hopefully be able to take some things away to your own classrooms, or even just get reaffirmation that actually you are already doing flip learning, you don't even realize you're doing it. So I'm head of computing and digital learning over at RGS Dodderhill, but we are part of a family of schools. So we have RGS The Grange, RGS Worcester, RGS Springfields, our 2 prep schools, RGS Worcester being our main senior school, and Dodderhill is a girls' school, but we are taking boys up to year 6. So part and parcel of our family of schools is the fact that we share teaching and learning, and flip learning is just about engagement. So hopefully some of the things I'm going to demonstrate to you this morning, you will see how engaged our learners are. So on the outside of my classroom, actually on the inside of my classroom, this is one of our young learners. You'll see that she's got an iPad in front of her. She's got a desktop in front of her. And this is what on the outside it looks like. So if you were able to walk into my classroom, you see it's pretty traditional. We've got seats, we've got computers. But on the inside of my real classroom, this is what it looks like. We've got a digital classroom. You can see as a teacher, I can see all my classes. For a learner coming into her classroom, you will be able to see that she's got her lessons right in front of her. And you'll be able to see that actually I'm able to organise those so they've got lesson headings, and I've got the ability to reflect, review, revise, add socrative tests. But I actually front load some of this stuff and pose some questions to our learners at the very beginning before we even start, get them thinking. And that's the whole purpose behind using applications and Showbie. How central it is to everything that we do nowadays is actually enabling our learners to take a question and really start thinking in a deep and meaningful way. So I've just got this quote from fliplearning.org. I wanted to provide you some research. So thinking about the journey that we've actually been on, our RGS Worcester and Dodderhill, and our prep schools, The Grange, Springfield, and even Dodderhill as well. We've learned that it's essential for technology to be used in a specific and purposeful way, making sure that our individual learners are able to have space within their learning journey to be able to step out of it, but be able to easily make it interactive and dynamic. But actually, there's so many things we do in our subjects which are application, concept, recall, understanding, but actually making sure it's creative is just so important. We aim to make sure our lessons are all inclusive, no child being left behind, and this will be the same for everybody else. And using applications such as Showbie, we've been able to adopt a range of digital pedagogies, which we couldn't necessarily do previously before using this. I've been using Showbie for a really long time now. And we've actually been able to demonstrate it using use a range of applications and be able to put it all together within Showbie has just been absolutely functional and foundational to what we do. So tools such as Showbie in flip learning make sure that we can actually demonstrate and look at our classroom in a different way and centralize our resources to make that community really happen. So actually this flexibility within flip learning is probably central. building flexible learning environments to make sure our learners are able to be ready, be able to contribute. Make sure that they can access learning anytime that they want. The walls of the classroom have melted away without being able to demonstrate and use Showbie. And I give homework and I upload it, and then my learners can go and I can call it independent study. Why do I call it homework? We don't call it homework. We call it independent study, because actually they could go outside on the lovely benches in our lovely lawns and make sure that they can do their homework there. It's not homework, it's independent study, and that's what Showbie can really do. I don't know about how many of our students would like to put us on pause occasionally. And I think my students were sometimes like, okay, stop this, I've got this, it's fine. I get that feedback all the time, and that's wonderful to hear. We all as human beings have preferences, and tapping into that is central to designing learning workflows which flip our classrooms to make sure that learning culture is learner-centric. And being able to access learning anytime that they're ready is important. So being able to upload video content, which learners can pause, rewind, and replay is absolutely excellent. But having that learning conversation along the way, being a teacher, being a facilitator is so important. I can then give my learners space and time to go, do you know what? You understand that workflow from last time, you understand that concept, go and find this bit now. So I'm actually a facilitator more than a teacher, and of course I do teach my children because that's important, but actually enabling them independently and individually to improve and progress and provide them individual feedback on their learning journey makes them better learners. And of course we want that to happen to make sure that they're successful learners. They can review and reflect on my feedback over and over and over again if they want to. So also behind flipped learning, it's about improving their resilience. It helps us being able to provide additional support and allow them to have pre-armed with information so they can come to our lessons actually understanding something. And that means if they have some pre-armed information, they can go further within my lessons when they actually need a teacher to be able to support them. Enabling them to come into my lessons understanding, actually, I understand that definition. I have the definition in front of me. I can use Quizlet. I've been able to practice that definition. I understand the words. It means that I can take it to deeper learning within the classroom, and we can progress more quickly and more efficiently. But actually being a teacher and running against the clock the whole time we do this, we go from lesson to lesson to lesson, having more teacher time rather than me focusing, do you know what, guys, we're all going to understand this word today. Where most of my learners are sat there going, what are you talking about? I understand this already. So I want to give my pupils more power. And I think if we understand it as teachers and they become teachers within their own right, that's even better for them as individuals. So if I talk about intentional content, differentiation can happen through the medium of video, through books. Books still happen, but in a physical and a digital world, and also using things like podcasts and things like that. But application of different resources and pace, we can provide a dynamic classroom. If learner preferences are really actually happening, one learner is going to go, do you know, actually, I'd like to do a podcast about this thing that I've learned. Actually, one learner would say, do you know what, I don't want to stand in front of a camera. I'm quite happy to talk about it behind and create a podcast or a vodcast. Other learners go, do you know what, I want to create a book and demonstrate this. So I really think this is very, very true. I try to make sure flipped learning is about ability, readiness, and pure interest. Making sure our pupils are interested in what they do is really, really important. We can design pedagogy to make sure that we access flipped learning all the time. So implementing that is really, really useful, and designing that flipped learning workflow is central to what I do. We can make sure that content is accessed at any time, in any place. We can remove the boundaries of a classroom and make sure that we can reflect, review, and rewind. Make sure true prep allows for deeper learning during the classroom. Deploying flipped learning allows me to connect with my learners individually. And essentially, a pupil is always at the heart of what we do, but we always try and give them the ability to make their mistakes. And I think that's flipped learning in a nutshell, because sometimes they're going to come to me with things that they've learned, which are completely wrong. But isn't it great to start off with actually understanding what goes wrong before we can correct it, rather than them coming along and saying, yeah, I'm not really sure about any of this. I tell you what, I'll just wing it and see what Miss gives me. No, let's make them make their own mistakes and then guide them through to the next stage. So I think making sure that we become better learners over time as teachers, as human beings, is the aim of the game. So I think this really summarizes how flipped working works. And so I thought now, obviously, that's all the theory, but let's have a look at actually how Showbie really works within my classroom. So what I'm trying to link traditional pedagogy, chalk and talk, standing at the front of the classroom saying, writing down on that board and saying, do you know what, guys, this is what you're going to learn today. Some, though, may have come to my classroom pre-armed with that information. Some may not have. So why are we wasting time for those individuals? With flipped learning, chalk and talk style becomes redundant and wasteful, I would argue. Although I admit I do still use chalk and talk at some points, because sometimes we have to stand at the board and say, right, guys, let's guide it. But actually, we can actually reduce that time, reduce that waste. Platform independent applications such as Showbie allow that to happen. And at the beginning, and several years ago, I saw this SAMR model, which haven't put the name with the Dr. Borenture, I think it was. He invented this SAMR model, which actually it demonstrates what we're trying to do with digital technology. What we don't want to do is purely use technology for straight out substitution. We want to get to redefinition and making sure that technology allows for the creation of new tasks that were previously inconceivable. In fact, if we look at this, and I frequently assess my own pedagogical design based on this SAMR model to make sure that I try and transform educational outcomes using technology when they're appropriate. And again, we are still stuck in this exam situation where we have to sit our students within an exam hall. And of course, I can't use it all to be redefinition the whole time, but there's nothing like engaging our learners through, pushing them up into modification where we can significantly redesign our tasks based on using technology to make them engaged. And if they're interested, they're engaged, they want to learn more. So the challenging thing about flipped learning is about making sure our inexperienced learners are able to be provided guidance and also use the best apps. Now, I don't know about you, but it's a case of I had my apps. I'm like, give me more apps, and let's see. And then it was like, no, I can't use these apps because I don't really use them in the best and appropriate way. So actually centralizing that multiple ways that our learners are able to present their learning is really key here, using apps for the purpose and then making sure we provide a platform for our learners to be able to upload them. So there's too many apps occasionally, but actually when we design it correctly, we can make something special really happen. So you can see my iPad here. I've got Kahoot, I've got Quizlet, I've got Book Creator and Explain Everything and Nearpod and all those apps. I've got Socrative, I've got Playgrounds. So how are we actually going to make sure instructional design really, really makes a difference? Well, in the time of binge watching, 24-hour access to digital content, I find myself adapting my pedagogy to meet the learner needs. It does take some training for the pupils to become confident in accessing content when they're ready. But when they are gradually used to progressing, then they're able to reflect, then they're able to go back to their iPad, then I can look at resources, and the workflow really becomes implemented. So I can direct learning, I can flip my classroom to make sure that they respond in a manner that suits my learners. And they are independent, individual learners. So this is just part of our digital learning program here at RGS. And Showbie is my main method of providing my flipped classroom since about 2014, 2015. It allows my teachers, or our teachers, all of our colleagues here at RGS to make sure that the digital textbook is provided flexible and reactive to the needs of the classroom. So when using Showbie with a range of applications, my advice is always to think about the structure of the classroom. Think about how you organize your classroom. Think about how you're going to preload them, what those titles really look like at the very beginning, because I learned a massive lesson here. Our students are going to come to our classroom and they're going to look at Showbie and they're going to go, okay, where do I go now? And that's so important to make sure that they're confident and they can go back to it in this period of revision that we're going through right now. So traditionally naming folders, even though it's a small thing, is a #1 hint and trick that I've learned over time. So making sure communications are streamlined and reference is important to me. As stated earlier, the learning journey involves a conversation between the pupil and the learner. As you can see, some straight substitution here. Here is a template, not very high in the scheme of things. But actually, in terms of instructions, I have to be able to provide initial instructions. But you can also see I provided a video, how to use this portfolio. Flip my learning. Why am I standing at the front of the classroom when my students can actually see a video? First of all, they can go away, they can pause, they can rewind. So I create simple video instructions to scaffold my resources. So I don't necessarily need to find myself repeating myself. I can use more teacher time for those learners in my classroom where they're needed. Some of my learners will just go on there, go that, they're quite happy. Some will just need a little bit of more of a prompt and some support. This simple method really supports an inclusive classroom in more ways than one. So facilitating my flipped learning model has been personally about adapting my schemes of work, and I've done that quite a few times. But that's because I'm still structuring it to meet the needs of the learners in front of me. Much about the structure that has been created and uploaded to Showbie when I copy from group to group is about being able to still keep that structure, but actually also import the resources when I need them. Provide conversations, provide extension work, provide prompts. Where Showbie class discussion has been so important is actually providing that one-to-one or one-to-many conversation between all of them in the classroom. That was so important during lockdown. As you can see here, a Seneca resource has been provided which contains more course content that the pupils can review, reflect, revise, and go back through. My lesson to learning about hardware here is about pupils reviewing the terminology, the theory, and then coming back to it, and then thinking about going back forward. And then actually, if I need to dip into data representation, I can. But then I'm there to be able to say, now guys, okay, what you're doing is you're going back to microbits now, go back. Let's see how hardware links with microbits. Now, previously it was get a book, let's have a look, go to check. No, they've got it all in front of them. They can do it whenever they want to. So here's another example of a flipped learning taking place. Pupils arrived to my classroom. I assigned them a web resource. This meant a simple way, task, add definitions to follow your digital portfolio. They provide a digital portfolio and they update it over time. This gave me so much more room in the classroom to actually walk around. It's not very high on the SAMR model, I understand that, but actually it's a good starter. But flipped assessment is even better. When I start building a scheme of work reactive to pupil progress, Showbie enables me to go include socrative assessments inside the assignment too. This has been brilliant. The benefit is that socrative can allow me to recreate that test. So if I think that actually those students have not quite got the concepts, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, I can be totally reactive. I can duplicate my assignment, I can reassign it, and my students, without any fuss, can access that resource once more. So I can assess the set the criteria that the quiz is automatically distributed to the pupils, and importantly, I can post the results back to them within a single tap. So that flexibility that I've gone back to previously is so important within the classroom, because it means that I can set it so the students can adapt, and I can react to what they're talking to me about in the middle of my lesson. Now, of course, it can be difficult to manage differentiation within a flipped classroom. But Showbie is so great at this. This is just, when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is what was needed for my differentiated classroom. The thing is that redefining my classroom is the ability to distribute resources at the point of need. So I don't want to overwhelm them with paper. I'd actually have a paperless classroom. I can get them to organise their notes and hand in work when they've missed it due to absence. But actually setting the permissions within Showbie to only post resources to individual students when they need has been amazing. But it also means I can upload my answers, set it to none, and then my students don't see the answers, and all I have to do is a tick, here are the answers, guys, go and reflect on those now. So this enables the pupils and myself to have a conversation and use another technique within my classroom to enable a better classroom workflow when it's needed. Another technique is to front load worksheets, and again, not high on the substitution on the summer model, but how we use that is a different way. The benefit of Showbie is that I can create the document workbook, but a task comes modification when students are able to respond, collect my feedback. I can react in real world time to their work. They can post messages, they can video themselves, they can record their own audio. Amazing for those that need additional learning, that have additional learning needs. And here, pupils can take my bubble markers, add their voice content, and react to my feedback very easily. So they're just going beyond that little thing that previously, it's a case of, okay, guys, why are we worrying about sitting on a desk? Why don't you just go and spread yourselves out? Go outside, it's sunshine. React to my feedback. Go and post comments. They're engaged. They want to go through it. They listen to my feedback, and then they react to that feedback within one environment. Something also that I have not pointed out on this is that I actually can react to different layers. So I can remove my comments and I can just see their comments as well, which is a really, really great way to have a conversation with my colleagues about the students' work, and we can do some moderation with. The tools that are available in Showbie include really rich media media-rich environment. So you can see how both a teacher and a student can have the same options. There are a couple of minor adjustments. I can issue a grade, I can launch a quiz. Those quizzes can be adapted to the needs of the learners, so it can be just a straight out question that they can respond to. I can screen record my answers and post a video really easy. I love doing screen recording within Showbie. It's really easy to do. And then produce an explanation for this work to make sure that they can post information back. It's just so handy, all the tools within here. I don't have to manually screen record that on my iPad anymore. Pressing screen record and then actually just talking while I'm using Showbie and marking within the Showbie assignment. Actually, the girls get to see my thoughts, and then they can become teachers in their own rights because they can understand what the objectives and the outcomes are going to be. And providing that digital feedback is engaging. They love listening to themselves, and then having the colleagues, and I've had them having their iPad right in front of them and having peer feedback where they just press record and record screen and them talking about their own work. It's really useful. But of course, creating an environment for flipped learning to take place is not restricted to Showbie alone. We have a breadth of resources using the iPad. I use Explain Everything extensively, and so do the students. And Showbie, though, is a method of stitching everything together, making sure that classroom walls are pushed down. To make everything decentralized in the iPad actually come together is really important, be it for retrieval and making sense of it later during revision. So here are some of the other apps that I'm using and some examples of flipped learning. Such as Flipgrid, which is a great addition to the classroom where teachers can post videos themselves and actually create one for you to have a look at. So here is an Explain Everything video.
Hi everyone, so this is my Explain Everything video on binary shift. So when we divide using binary shift, we move everything to the right, and when we times, we move everything to the left, which I've written out there. And so this is what we've been given. The number is shifted 3 places to the right. And so I've written out my number here in blue, and what I'm going to look at first is 3 and right. So I go to the right hand side of my number and I get rid of.
And so you can see Phoebe has done an amazing job there. Just a very simple whiteboard activity, but previously I couldn't do this without Showbie, where whiteboards, they get wiped and or they take a photo. Actually, the iPad becomes central. She has a catalogue of her own videos. She's become a teacher. She is now reflecting on her learning. That was a flipped learning activity. She just went away, she revised it.
Hi everyone, so this is my Explain Everything video on
that one, sorry about that. Okay, and flipped learning activities. Flipped learning is also about the pupils choosing their own method, and their experiences are massively varied. I honestly did not give any more information than please upload this week's homework assignment. I want you to go and find out, the title's on the left hand side, what is a computer? And this is what one of my students came up with.
People ask me what a computer is. I'll tell you in this really short bit. A computer is working with your information. The information comes in numbers, words, pictures, sounds, or movies. Computer information is also called data. Computers can process large amounts of data like very quickly, like you see, but 300 meters. A computer requires both hardware and software. Hardware is the computer's physical part. Software is the program or instruction that tell the hardware what to do. Most computers are electronic devices. This means they work very electronically. Computers use binary, which is zeros and ones.
This boy is, he's brilliant, but he does find it very difficult to get down his understanding. And actually what he produced for me just there was so content rich that in the classroom, he just simply wouldn't have produced that. I just, honestly, that was something that was, the others pretended they were Ada Lovelace, but Ruben came along there with a brilliant video. So this is, I don't know if you've heard about the technique of post, pause, bounce. Wouldn't it be great for us to be able to actually capture our post, pause, bounce? Flipgrid does just that.
Hello, Year 6. What have we learned about robots? What do you think a robot is? Who do you think will use robots in the future? Can you understand why you can't see my image? What is that thing in front of you? What are those blocks called? Here we go, I'm saying hello. Now I would like you to respond to this video, please. I would like you to tell me what you think a robot is. And I would like you to talk to me using your robots. This is going to be a really fun activity, blending on from the activity that we did during last week. So I hope that you enjoy this, and I look forward to seeing your responses.
So Flipgrid is something that engages our learners. I've posted, I'm sorry about the tinniness on that, but I've posted a video to them. That's a flip learning activity. They're going to see that at the actually next lesson. So they're talking about the robots. We use spheros, and then we talk about input and process and output, and we talk about how that robot works, and they're going to post their videos back to me. Another flip learning resource is Quizlet. I absolutely love Quizlet. And when we use Quizlet, I'll show you the Quizlet happening in the next slide. Our students can create a resource for students to use. They can create their own resources. In my Flip classroom, they have study sets where I can ask questions and complete, so I can ask the students to complete flashcards. But the flashcards are so accessible. They can read them back to them. They can test them. They can play games with them. They're engaged. In our Flip Learning classroom, you can set quizzes first and ask students to study the sets. So if I set up a set, they can actually go and study it before they've even come across some of the terminology. So let's have a look at Quizlet. Quizlet is possibly the one of the things that I use all the time. Define the start and end of an algorithm using a flowchart. And you'll see on the right-hand side, it says don't know. That is key. So if those students aren't quite ready to access the learning, they become more resilient by actually just giving it a go. And then if they don't know, they've got that support strategy in place. I think that's a brilliant resource. So it's, again, beginning, middle and end of the lesson you can actually do that with. Book Creator has got some beautiful facilities. I love the read to me feature. You can't see this in the screenshot, but it means that I can set up templates and students can demonstrate as they go through my lessons their thing that they've done. They can put a video or a photo in there. So I've flipped my classroom and I can wander around the classroom while they do the work to be able to scaffold. They love creating their own ebooks. There's lots of content to be embedded and collated from different resources, and it's great for portfolios. It has taken time to build workflow and work out best practice. And even today, I don't feel like everything's perfect. But then again, I don't think it really ever will be. But dare I mention the pandemic? Flipped learning has truly been something the most enlightening thing that I've ever had to go through. At RGS Dodderhill, our staff had only just been introduced to our digital learning programme when they joined the family of schools in 2019. And boy, oh boy, did they have an upward curve to be able to go and implement this at home. But they did become a lot, they found better ways. They were able to include more creative ideas within their classroom because there were no walls, everyone was at home. And flipped learning has truly been something that come into practice, and we've continually managed a range of scenarios. Home learning was just the most challenging thing for teachers and our learners, and not being able to quite judge what they're up to, what their progress will be, see their faces, even though we taught lessons every single day using a usual timetable, a mixture of students in class and home, and when we're in a hybrid model. But we can use that using Showbie. It's been central to the way we've actually done it. Students were not able to log into live lessons. They could be provided with their work. Students were able, their internet connection cut out at home. We could provide them some work to do later and some catch up. There's been one constant to providing this hybrid classroom with ease in the digital learning programme, pre-recording lessons and tasks, asking students to pre-read and use flipped learning, setting independent study, setting revision, even exams. Throughout all of this, Showbie has been central for everybody. I'm not sure yet whether I'm quite comfortable about not teaching. I'm not saying that I'm never going to teach because it's totally flipped. It's not. The conditions, though, are there for learning. The conditions are important, and being a facilitator is something that has to be true. And the platform providing those conditions are available to all. And I think it's all about just establishing what those conditions are and adapting those as time goes on, as we've seen in this pandemic. And then actually managing those conditions, communicating with teachers. I haven't really touched on how Showbie is so good for being able to talk to my colleagues about what we do and how we do it, and moderating and things like that. But it's about our learners being able to reach their potential through accessing learning opportunities when they're ready. So we're almost there. One more slide to go, but I just wanted to talk to you about the things that we've learned, or I've learned as a teacher through using flipped learning within my classroom. It requires planning, and I think this has been the most challenging thing that's happened, is that we need to make sure that we plan our lessons and actually be more reactive and think about the wider implications of what we're trying to achieve. I don't think my lesson planning stays the same from week to week, and that's okay. Actually, handing over your classroom can be really quite daunting, and be prepared for some of the students to come back to you with things that just hadn't even thought of, but that's okay, because in a resilient classroom, teachers and pupils, knowing the pupils and understanding their abilities and their needs is it's so fulfilling, and I get a lot out of it. And so do the students, hopefully. Flipped learning can be a lot of fun. You can see some of those resources that we've used today. iMovie, I've actually the Keynote, that you can actually create GIFs in Keynote and explain everything. And I came across HoloGo yesterday, and oh my gosh, we're already starting to going to be using. I spoke to one of my colleagues over at Dodderhill, and she was like, oh, I see a beating heart, and that was, I'm going to use that for our lesson today in augmented reality. I've come across some Reality Composer recently, and I'm really looking forward to be able to share models through Showbie, which will be absolutely amazing. The classroom can be developed to be more inclusive because I can target my resources when the pupils need it and give them choice when it's appropriate. Pathways for learning can be established. Pupils can complete activities and be stretched further so easily. When they don't see the things that are happening behind the ground, I can actually front load all of my resources and then allocate them to make sure that my classroom is differentiated. Changes are easy to deal with. It's possible to provide further information and resources to help pupils keep up to date, scaffold, stretch them, and make sure that they are pointed to additional learning resources. Having that more teacher time to make sure that I can give them the resource and the support that they need. And anything that is a link and a resource can be added to an assignment. That scanning book option within Showbie illuminates a book, a novel, where you actually can scan the book and add teacher commentary as you're going through, talking about what the novel's all about. I think for English and maths, and you think about Explain Everything, it's just the world just becomes open to more interactivity in an easier way. And so that's my presentation. I'm sorry I'm about 5 minutes early. I just obviously want to make sure you get open up to any questions that you have. Graham, you there?
Yes, thank you very much. That's been absolutely fascinating insights into your classroom and how you approach flipped learning. There was one question that came through around the worksheets that you were looking at, and it was specifically around, was that for live learning or kind of in online learning? So what I mean by live is in person. So yeah, so was that for in-person learning or intended for online learning?
Both. So the workbooks and the worksheets are a straight out pages document, which I've just created lots of questions and blank spaces to be filled in with Showbie commentary. So at the point I think, well, actually, this is an activity that students go and reflect on their learning. They have that worksheet in front of them. I say, okay, go away, go and get yourself in a little corner, put a comment bubble, either a video or a comment bubble itself, and then talk to me about what you're reflecting upon what you've done. But also it's important to think about, there's some theory in there. I didn't show you some of the things that I've done, but you can actually draw on the worksheet. So they're following, as I'm actually teaching my lesson, they're following the steps that I'm doing by writing actually on the worksheet itself. And that's been really great.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of things, because obviously flipped learning central to kind of what you're doing. But for some of the people who are on this call, it might be that they've never tried it before. What would be your top tips for starting out with flipped learning?
Classroom design. Making sure that you think, what are we actually trying to get them to achieve? Now, we all set up learning objectives and we all look at the outcomes at every single lesson. And why don't you just pick on one of those outcomes, a very small one, and post a video? Ask the children to go away and just say, what is this? What is your understanding of this currently? Create a little video of yourself, and just then it snowballs from there. And the students go, Joanne, can I do this? And can I do that? And can I produce it a different way? And do I have some choice on my iPad? And it's a case of, yes, you do. So the first thing that I did with flipped learning when I did it is I created an assignment. I just posted a question as an independent study activity. And I said, what is this concept? And it would be something very simple, like, what is a computer? Now, everybody understands what is a computer. They understand, a computer can be just a home computer. It can be your Xbox. So the children will understand that terminology because you will have dropped some terminology in along the way. So one simple question, one simple thing, and see what the answer is.
Yeah, and this comes back into kind of the videos that you mentioned. I mean, one of the things that me personally, I get a little bit of OCD around making videos, and I want it to be perfect. what advice around kind of quality for flipped learning? Are you looking at really polished videos? Are you looking at actually know that they're not, and just how do the students take it when actually the video isn't perfect?
My students have produced so many very different videos, and I love that, because our students in front of us are all independent individuals, and it's okay for it not to be polished, and I expect it not to be polished, because I don't want them, unless I was teaching, this is how video editing works. Some of them become they do get obsessed, and actually there is a case of when they understand that my expectation isn't about the quality, it's about what they're saying, then they become a bit more relaxed. And I've seen some terrible videos, but actually the content has been really good. And I showed you what Ruben did. He dressed up, he had his hat on and his thing, and some of the words were a little bit jumbled up, but that's okay, because that's him and that's how he behave in my classroom. And so that's all I ask.
What about you as a teacher? Do you hold yourself to those same expectations as the students?
No, I am a bit, yeah, I pause, I rewind, I re-record myself, because if I think I create one video, I can use it many times over many years. So I am a little bit more, like I say, OCD about my videos. But I think what's really good about things like Explain Everything is I can set up my scenes, and this is how I do it. And then I record a little bit, stop, then go a little bit further, record a little bit. So it's not like I'm creating one great big video from the beginning to the end where I have to always go back through. So easy to actually set up and go through.
Yeah, so small bite-sized chunks. And I think as well as Explain Everything, the audio feature on Keynote's really good at that as well, because there's nothing worse if you're into a 20-minute video and at minute 18 you make a mistake. So putting it up into little chunks. One of the things I would just like to pick up on there, you said you went from loads and loads of apps down to just a few. How do you go through that quality control? Is that a school decision? Is it a department decision? Or is it you as an individual teacher? And if it is you as an individual teacher, what's your thought process? Because I think that when you're talking about instructional design, if we can get into your mind, that would really help.
Okay, yeah. I've been a trainer here at RGS Worcester since I started about in 2013. So I've had to get my place in an understanding about what I do so I can communicate it, because teachers are busy. So leading a session, I've done lots of sessions, and we've talked about lots of workflows. We've got Pages, we've got Keynote, we've got Google Docs, we've got all the different apps, we've got Explain Everything, we've got Flipgrid, and all of those different things. And it's a case of, okay, when do you use it most appropriately? And that has been some trial and error on my part. But it's also been about really important conversations that have happened within department. Understanding, actually going into a classroom, I worked with English, for instance, and they were setting up a book creator book so they could distribute it via Showbie for all of their teachers to create a vocab book with all the students, so they could constantly check back with English. I mean, some of the book creator features, when you create it as an ebook and you can actually hear the words back to yourself, actually going in saying, this is an app which you could do using Pages, but Book Creator has these features. What do you think? And then going back and reflecting on that process over time has meant we've been able to rationalize our app use.
So definitely advocating, even if you're in a department of one, finding that friendly face in the staff room where you can bounce those ideas off each other and find out actually if what you're thinking is going to be a good idea.
Yeah, and reflecting on it constantly. Those conversations have been so important. I think that's what we've missed during lockdown, that those conversations haven't been easy. But since we've come back, you've seen a lot more conversation happening, thinking about how can we use Explain Everything to do this, to create little GIFs, or Keynote create little GIFs. Same thing. Actually, sometimes it's teacher preference, and that's okay, because we have to allow teacher creativity to still take place. But central to everything is making sure that we can collectively take that understanding about an experience within the classroom, of which we've got so much here, and all schools will have so much, and making sure that it's appropriate and it's easy to implement, and having those conversations, it has just been central to everything that we do.
Yeah, so in terms of the purpose, are you looking at pace of learning? Are you looking at quality of content and deeper learning? Are those kind of the aspects that you're looking at? Are there any others that you think of when you're thinking of purpose?
Outcomes is one. And I'm not going to lie, when it comes to GCSE and A-level, it's examinations is another, but it's the method that we get there. And because I've got such different learners within the classroom, I can't say, you know, when I look at an objective, I think, how are we going to achieve this? For a younger audience, such as year 6, 7, and 8, I want them to be excited. So I want them to create more video content. For somebody and you saw Phoebe's video talking about binary arithmetic, I want her to sit down and really think about how she's doing the mathematics and how she's actually going to apply that to an exam scenario. So I can't say that it's always outcomes. I can't say it's always about learner engagement, because it's a mixture of everything, and it has to be, because it's so adaptable. I can't say, you know, this is the way we do it all the time, because it's not. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the other thing, because obviously when students are more skilled with the digital technology, it opens it up to being able to say, learn how use what you learn best. How do you scaffold those skills? That would be a great little insight, particularly around flipped learning and scaffolding.
There have had to be lessons where we've said, you know what, guys, we're going to learn to use Explain Everything. But there is always an objective, such as, I want you to just talk about the history of computing. Here's Explain Everything, and we're going to go through a very simple example of how we make a little animation, or a little this is like a stickman option, a little thing that you can bring in, clip art, that's it. There's a little clip art that you can bring in, and you can make it move around and make it talk. Just that simple thing of them playing back, seeing that you can move this stickman around and explain everything, and hear their voice talking as they're talking about the stickman. And they're like, right, what else can I put in? Can I write my name? Can I go and see these options? Can I group things together to make things happen? What happens if I stitch all these together? And then we can talk about movies and how the ICT world really works and how movie making really happens. And I think from those conversations of using this very simple idea just blossoms into an amazing conversation and some really lovely creativity that goes along with it. The only thing that I'd also say is that when we've got some individuals, they're nervous, they will stick to the stickman and their voice, and they won't go much further than that. And that's where I can allow those students that are really flying to work together, collaborate, and really help those people that are really struggling. Say, do you know what? How about if we add the same stickman on a different slide and then make it move a little bit and then play it back? And then maybe if I talk in there, and then they go, okay, right, can I talk? Or can I step out the room and talk? Because I'm a bit worried about everyone hearing me. And that's okay, because it's flexible.
Yeah, and just one last question. Sorry, I could probably talk all day with you. And so really what you're looking at there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking almost at having two sets of outcomes when you're scaffolding and building. You've got your content, and you've got your skills outcomes for the particular piece of software that you're using. Is that right in saying? And do you share with the students how you build those outcomes?
Definitely. I think if they can see what my main objective is, and the good thing is about having done this a few times, and it doesn't help those schools that are all starting out for the first time, but those people that are coming back to the session, to flip learning or using some of these tools, they can draw on what the outcomes have been in a previous year group. And because I've got access to Showbie, I can just go, do you know what, guys? I copy the assignment over, copy some of the work. Here's an example of what we're doing. And if they can see some really good pieces, they can see where they're going. They really want to, there's a bit of competition and they want to beat their friends.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I know we're from finishing 5 minutes early with the presentation, we've actually ran 5 minutes over with the question and answer. So no, I would just like to thank you for giving up your time this morning, and sharing your experiences around flipped learning. You know, some of the comments that are coming in, thanking you for the session, saying that my classroom's not flipped, but it soon will be. I think that's a really good testament to what you've delivered this morning. So just before we end this, just want to share with you that we've got a couple of panel discussions and educator interviews coming up this afternoon with a focus around independent schools. We've also got subject sessions around retrieval practice and also the MFL classroom. So it would be great to see you on those. If not, please enjoy the recording back at a later date. And Emma, once again, thank you very much for giving up your time this morning for the session. So thank you. Yeah, so thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, or your mornings. Thanks. Bye.